She said it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and it stuck to me like heat after a summer storm. I shouldn't have been staring, but I was. The kitchen light caught the faint silver in her hair, the kind of strands that refused to be hidden, even if she wanted them to be. She leaned against the counter as if the room belonged to her, chin slightly tilted, one hand wrapped around a half-empty glass of wine. She didn't need to announce herself, she carried her own gravity. And I, barely 22, still stumbling into who I was, found myself orbiting around it. "Are you always this quiet?" she asked, arching a brow. I shrugged, playing it off, though my throat felt tight. "Only when I don't know what to say." Her lips curved, not a full smile, more like the beginning of one she wasn't sure she should finish. "That's dangerous. People like me always fill silence." The air between us thinned. I wanted to answer, but I couldn't decide if words would pull me closer or push me too far away. So I just let the quiet sit. Her laugh came low, almost private. She set the glass down, her fingers brushing the stem with absent care. "You remind me," she said, eyes flicking toward me and then away, "of every bad decision I loved making." I should have laughed. Or said something light. Instead, my chest went tight, as if she had pulled a thread I didn't know was there. I stepped closer, not much, just enough to notice the faint perfume on her skin. Not floral. Something warmer, more lived in. A scent that seemed to hang at the edge of memory. Her hand shifted on the counter, and when mine brushed against it, barely, a ghost of contact, she didn't move away. She didn't lean in either. She just let the space hum, charged, almost unbearable. I swallowed. "And is that a good thing?" She looked at me then. Really looked. Her gaze lingered too long for an innocent answer, but not long enough to confess anything. The muscles in her jaw tightened before she spoke. "That depends on whether you like trouble." Her voice wasn't teasing. It was heavier, threaded with something she probably wished I was too young to catch. I wanted to tell her I wasn't as young as I looked. Then I'd been watching her all evening, catching the way she laughed too quickly at her brother's stories, or how she avoided the photographs on the wall when no one else was looking. But instead I said nothing. Her fingers tapped against the countertop once, twice, then stilled. "You're thinking too hard," she murmured. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was just trying to memorize the way her shadow curved across the kitchen tiles, the way the dim light made her eyes darker than they were. The silence pressed close again. And then, just for a second, her hand shifted fully onto mine. Not an accident this time. The warmth of her palm was real, steady, and more intimate than it should have been. I held still. Afraid to move. Afraid she'd pull away if I breathed too loud. But before I could say anything, before I could ask her what she meant by all of it, the back door creaked open. Her hand slipped from mine instantly, as though it had never been there. And we both turned, caught in the doorway of something neither of us was ready to name. The back door clicked shut again after her nephew wandered in, grabbed a beer, and wandered back out to the yard without a glance. We stood there like nothing had happened, like my pulse wasn't hammering at the inside of my throat. She moved first, reclaiming her glass of wine, though she didn't drink it. She just held it in both hands, staring into the dark red as if it might give her answers. "You know," she said finally, "I used to think I had it all figured out. Marriage. Kids. The whole picture." Her laugh was short, humorless. "Turns out the picture fades a lot faster than they tell you." I stayed quiet. She wasn't really talking to me, she was talking to herself, the words sliding out like a truth she hadn't meant to share. She glanced at me then, eyes catching mine. "You've probably never even been in love, have you?" The question stung in a way I didn't expect. "I thought I was. Once." I hesitated. She didn't agree. Her smile softened, almost kind. "Ah. So you already know the game." I wanted to ask her what game she meant, but something in her expression, tight around the edges, weary, stopped me. The silence stretched, and in it, I noticed everything I wasn't supposed to. The faint line of her collarbone, The way she leaned her hip against the counter as if to ground herself, the gold chain resting against her skin. My eyes lingered too long. She caught it. I knew she did, because her shoulders shifted, a subtle adjustment, and she looked away quickly. "This isn't wise," she murmured, almost to herself. I swallowed. "No. Probably not." She gave a sharp exhale, something between a laugh and a sigh. "You're just a kid." "I'm not," I said too quickly. Her gaze slid back, appraising me. Not dismissive, searching. The kind of look that made me stand taller without realizing. "You think being grown means wanting things you shouldn't?" she asked. The words hit heavier than they should have. I had no answer, not one that wouldn't betray exactly how much I wanted her right then. So I stayed quiet. She stepped closer, reaching past me for something on the counter, a dish towel she didn't need. Her shoulder brushed my chest, light but deliberate. I could feel her breath near my jaw, the warmth of it making the room suddenly smaller. I didn't move. Neither did she. The towel stayed in her hands untouched. "Your trouble," she whispered, her voice low enough to be almost a confession. I should have laughed, made a joke, deflected. But instead I said, "So are you." Her lips parted just slightly, as if to argue, but no words came. For a long second, we just stood there, too close, every detail magnified, the faint scent of wine on her breath, the pulse visible at her throat, the way her fingers tightened on the towel until the fabric bunched. A sound from the yard broke the moment, a burst of laughter, the clink of bottles. She stepped back quickly, shaking her head. I let the space widen, though my body ached against it. She turned toward the sink, rinsing the towels she hadn't used, letting water run over her hands longer than necessary. When she finally spoke, her tone was lighter, practiced. "You'll forget all this tomorrow." I didn't believe her. She didn't either. "Maybe," I said. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, testing, as if waiting for me to look away. I didn't. The corner of her mouth curved, barely there, a secret, almost smile. And then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, her damp hand brushed against mine as she set the towel down. Not accidental this time. A touch that lingered just long enough to burn. Neither of us pulled away. The laughter outside grew louder, closer, but in that kitchen, it felt like the world had narrowed to the space between our hands. The voices outside grew louder, pressing at the thin walls of the kitchen, but neither of us moved away. Her hand was still close to mine, damp from the towel, her fingers a breath from curling around my own. Then, footsteps. We both snapped apart as her nephew barreled in, phone in hand. He didn't notice us. Just opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, and left with the door banging shut behind him. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Her shoulders lifted, dropped again. "See?" she said softly, half to herself. "It would take nothing for them to notice." I didn't answer. Because she was right. And because all I could focus on was the space she'd left behind when she pulled away. She turned to the counter, gathering empty glasses, her movements brisk, practiced. I stepped in to help, too close again. My arm brushed hers as I reached for a glass, and she froze for half a second. Just half. But it was enough to make my pulse slam. "You shouldn't," she murmured without looking at me. "Neither should you," I said quietly. Her breath caught, small, sharp. She set the glass down harder than necessary, the sound cracking the air. Then she faced me, eyes darker than before, something unsteady flickering inside them. "You don't know what you're doing." "Then tell me," I said. My voice wasn't steady either. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she stepped forward, closer than before, so close I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. The kitchen felt smaller, the hum of the refrigerator louder. My chest rose, fell. Her gaze dropped to my mouth for the briefest second, then flicked back to my eyes. The world shrank to that flicker. My hand lifted, slow, hesitant, until it hovered just above her arm. I didn't touch her. Not yet. But I was close enough that the hairs on her skin rose. She didn't move. Outside, another burst of laughter, the scrape of chairs on the deck. She glanced toward the sound, then back at me. Torn. Her voice dropped to a whisper. If they saw us, they won't, I said, though I wasn't sure. Her jaw tightened. You're too young. I'm beautiful, I finished for her. Her breath hitched. She should have stepped back. I should have. Instead, the inches between us burned. Her hand lifted as if to push me away. Instead, her fingers brushed against my chest, hovering there, light as air. She stayed like that, not quite touching, not quite resisting. I leaned in, just enough to feel the faintest warmth of her breath on my lips. Every second stretched, unbearable. Then, a sharp buzz. Her phone lit up on the counter. She jerked back, almost too fast. The spell broke. She grabbed the phone, pressing it to her chest before even reading the screen. Her hand trembled slightly. I stayed where I was, pulse still hammering, jaw tight. She finally glanced at the message, then set the phone down face down. I can't, she whispered. But her eyes didn't match her words. Neither of us moved. The space between us had grown again, but it wasn't enough. Her chest rose and fell, her lips pressed tight, her fingers twitching like they wanted to reach for me but couldn't. And then, slowly, deliberately, she closed the distance by half a step. Not touching. Not kissing. But closer than before. Close enough to know neither of us was letting go of this, no matter how much we tried. The hum of conversation outside dulled into background noise. In the kitchen, it was just us, pressed into a silence too fragile to break. She was the first to move. Not away, closer. Her shoulder brushed mine as she set the phone down again, carefully, as though it might shatter. You don't understand what this would mean, she whispered, her voice rougher now, like the words hurt to say. I do, I said, though maybe I didn't. Not fully. All I knew was that I couldn't stop looking at her. Couldn't stop wanting her closer. Her eyes searched mine, quick, desperate, as if hunting for something she shouldn't find. And then, her hand lifted, fingers trembling slightly, brushing a stray piece of hair back from my forehead. The touch was light, fleeting, but it broke something open in me. I caught her wrist before she could pull away. She froze. Her pulse thudded against my fingers. You shouldn't, she whispered again, but softer this time, as if she were trying to convince herself. I leaned in, my voice low against the edge of her ear. Then tell me to stop. Her breath hitched. Her body leaned, almost imperceptibly, toward mine. You're too young, she said, but the words had no weight. You don't believe that, I murmured. Her silence confirmed it. For a long moment, we just stood there, my hand still around her wrist, her eyes locked on mine. Every breath, every flicker of movement stretched thin as glass. And then she broke. Her other hand lifted, pressing lightly against my chest, not pushing me back, just feeling the shape of me beneath her palm. Her lips parted, her eyes darted once more to my mouth. You don't know what you're asking for, she said, her voice fraying at the edges. Then show me, I whispered. The words landed like a spark in dry grass. Her breath shuddered out, and suddenly she was closer, her forehead nearly against mine. I could feel the warmth of her skin, the faint tremble in her body as she leaned into me. I raised my free hand, slow, careful, and brushed my fingers along her cheek, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She closed her eyes briefly, as if the touch undid her. When she opened them again, they were darker, heavier. Her lips hovered near mine. Close enough that I could taste her breath, wine, warmth, something unspoken. I tilted forward, just enough that our mouths almost met. Almost. And then, she whispered, so quietly it was almost a plea. This will ruin me. My heart hammered. Or save you. Her breath caught, her hand fisting lightly in my shirt as though to anchor herself. We were there, balanced on the edge, the space between a choice and a mistake. And just as the world narrowed to that single point, the sound of the back door opening again shattered it. Voices spilled into the kitchen. We jerked apart, both breathless, both wide-eyed. But neither of us stepped far enough away to erase what had just happened. She pressed a hand over her mouth, as though to keep words from spilling out. I stood frozen, every nerve still alive with the nearness of her. And when the voices faded again, when we were alone once more, she lowered her hand and whispered the line I'd been waiting for, trembling and dangerous. "Say it, if you want me." Her words, "Say it if you want me," still clung to the air when the back door opened again. Only this time, it wasn't her nephew. It was my friend. He stepped into the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, barely noticing us. He rummaged in the fridge, muttered something about beer, then wandered out again mid-conversation. But the damage was done. The moment shattered. Her body stiffened, her hand dropping from my shirt as if burned. She took a full step back, crossing her arms. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Do you see?" she said low, sharp. "1 second. Just one, and it could all come out." I swallowed hard, still reeling from how close we'd been. "He didn't notice. He could have." She pressed a hand to her temple. "God. What am I doing?" I wanted to reach for her, to pull her back into that fragile closeness, but something in her posture, tight, closed, defensive, stopped me. "Why are you fighting it?" I asked. She laughed once, bitter. "Because I've been here before." The words landed heavy, thick with history. My chest tightened. "With who?" Her silence stretched too long. Then she said, "I made mistakes. When I was your age. Different faces, same patterns. I thought I'd grown past it, but here I am." She cut herself off, biting her lip hard enough to leave a mark. Her honesty should have scared me. Instead, it drew me closer. I stepped forward anyway. She didn't move, but her breathing quickened. When my hand brushed her arm, she shivered. "You think this is the same as before?" I murmured. Her eyes flicked up, wide, uncertain. "It's not," I said. "I'm not him." Her lips parted as if to argue, but she didn't. Her throat worked as she swallowed. And then, her phone buzzed again on the counter. She glanced at it, and her whole face changed. A name lit up the screen, one she didn't want me to see. She snatched the phone up, fumbling with the lock button, but too late. I'd already seen the word ex-husband. The silence was sharp enough to cut. "You're still talking to him," I said quietly. Her jaw clenched. "It's complicated." I nodded slowly, though my chest burned. "You still care about him?" She pressed her lips together, then shook her head. "Not the way you think. But he knows how to get in. He always has." The admission twisted something inside me, jealousy, raw and ugly, tangled with the ache of wanting her even more. I stepped closer without meaning to. "And me? Do I get in?" Her hand trembled as she set the phone back down. "You shouldn't." "That's not what I asked?" Her breath hitched. She turned, finally meeting my eyes, and there it was, clear, undeniable, the thing she was trying so hard to bury. "You're the one I can't stop thinking about," she whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. The words stole the air from the room. For a moment neither of us moved. Then she brushed past me, her shoulder grazing my chest, heat bleeding through the thin barrier of fabric. I caught the faint tremor in her hands as she gripped the counter, steadying herself. I followed, unable to stop. My hand hovered at her back, not touching, but close enough that she'd feel it if she leaned even slightly. "You're scared," I said softly. She closed her eyes. Terrified. I lowered my head until my mouth was near her ear. "So am I." Her body shivered, caught between resistance and surrender. And then, slowly, deliberately, she leaned back just enough to brush against me. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. But it was a decision. A shift. The point of no return. When she finally turned to face me, her voice was steady, even if her hands weren't. "Then don't make me wait any longer." Her words, "Then don't make me wait any longer," hung between us like a dare either of us could take back. The kitchen was dim now, most of the house empty, the laughter outside thinning to a low murmur. Time had slowed to the space between breaths, every second stretched to breaking. I stepped closer, slow, deliberate. She didn't move away. Our bodies aligned but didn't touch, inches of air thick with heat between us. I could feel the rise and fall of her breathing, the slight tremor in her chest. Her perfume, warm, subtle, something I wanted to drown in, rose with every shallow breath. She whispered, "You'll regret this." "Not a chance," I said. My voice came out lower than I intended, rough with everything I was holding back. Her hand lifted, tentative, landing against my shirt. Her fingers curled lightly into the fabric, anchoring herself, as if she wanted to push me away but instead pulled me closer. "You're too young," she tried again, softer now, almost pleading. I leaned in until my lips brushed the edge of her hair, my whisper against her skin. "Then stop me." She didn't. Instead, she exhaled, long and shaky, and her forehead dropped against my chest. I wrapped a hand around the back of her head, careful, as if one wrong move would break her. My thumb brushed her temple, and she melted, just slightly, into me. It wasn't a kiss yet. But it was everything before one. "You don't know how dangerous this is," she murmured, voice muffled against me. "Then let it be dangerous," I said. She laughed once, breathless, but it wasn't amusement, it was surrender. She tilted her head up, her face inches from mine, eyes wide and unguarded. In them I saw it all, fear, longing, regret, and something fiercer than both of us. I lifted my hand, brushing her hair back from her cheek, and her breath caught. The skin beneath my fingertips was warm, alive. My thumb lingered at the corner of her jaw, and she leaned into the touch like she'd been waiting years for it. The world outside disappeared. Her lips parted, a whisper of air escaping, and then, finally, we closed the distance. The kiss wasn't polished. It wasn't gentle. It was messy, uneven, like neither of us knew what we were doing anymore. Her hands gripped at me, desperate and uncertain, while I held her tighter than I should have, terrified she might vanish. It lasted only seconds, but it rewrote everything. When we pulled apart, foreheads still touching, both of us were shaking. Her voice was hoarse when she said, "Now there's no going back." I smiled faintly, breathless. "Good." She searched my face, studying me like she was trying to memorize something. Then her hand cupped my jaw, steady despite the tremor in her fingers. "You see me," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "God help me, you actually see me." I nodded, no hesitation. "Always." The fear in her eyes didn't vanish, but it shifted, mingled with something softer, truer. For the first time that night, clarity settled over us. Not safety, not certainty, but truth. We understood each other fully now. And no matter what waited outside that kitchen door, the choice had already been made. The kiss had broken something open, every wall, every excuse, every half-truth we'd both been clinging to. Now the silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was alive, humming with everything we'd finally stopped pretending not to feel. She leaned back just enough to look at me. Her eyes were softer now, though rimmed with something fragile. I saw the questions there, the doubts, but also the way she hadn't let go of my shirt. Her fingers were still curled in the fabric like she was afraid I might vanish if she loosened her grip. "You don't know what you're getting into," she whispered. I slid my hand down to hers, gently prying her fingers free, not to let go, but to lace them with mine. "Then show me." She stared at our hands, tangled together, thumb brushing across my knuckles as if testing the reality of it. "I told myself I was done with mistakes," she murmured. "Done with wanting things I shouldn't." I leaned closer, my voice low near her ear. "What if this isn't a mistake?" Her eyes closed briefly, her shoulders dropping like a weight she'd been carrying had slipped free. When she opened them again, there was a small, unsteady smile tugging at her mouth. "You're too young to say things like that." "Maybe," I admitted. "But I've never been more certain of anything." She laughed softly, shaking her head, but she didn't let go of my hand. Instead, she drew me toward her until we sat on the edge of the counter together, shoulders pressed close. The house outside was still noisy, clinking glasses, laughter carrying through the walls. But in here it felt like the world had gone quiet just for us. I rested my forehead lightly against hers. Do you regret it? Her breath lingered against my lips, slow and warm. Not for a second. We stayed like that for a long time, either of us rushing to fill the space with words. It was enough, her hand in mine, her body leaning into my shoulder, her head eventually resting against me. I wrapped an arm around her waist, holding her steady. She let me. No more pulling back. No more pretending. The fear was still there, of course. The age gap, the risks, the eyes that might notice if we weren't careful. But it no longer felt like something standing between us. It felt like something we'd already decided to face together. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke again. You'll probably hate me tomorrow. I pressed a kiss to her forehead, lingering. Not possible. She let out a long breath, her body relaxing fully against mine for the first time that night. Her fingers squeezed mine, firm and sure. And just like that, the fight was over. We'd chosen. Not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly. When she finally lifted her head, her smile was small, but real. You remind me of every bad decision I ever loved making, she said again, the words softer now, stripped of their bite. I grinned. Then maybe I'm the best one yet. Her laugh, warm and quiet, filled the kitchen. She leaned into me again, and this time, either of us pulled away.